I think Ibrahim will join. Ibrahim is going to join us when he's going to join when he gets. Okay, so just a quick overview for why we are here. Thank you very much for joining us today. Today happens to be the International Day for Youth. It's a UN day that is basically set aside to create awareness or draw attention to a set of issues that affect people around, surrounding the young people, youth, basically. So it has to do with cultural, religious, legal issues that surrounds young people. And so the conversation has always been, how can we throw more light onto some of these issues that is affecting young people, so we see how best we can all collectively address the concerns. And this year's theme basically is intergenerational solidarity, creating a world for all ages. And as young people, very active in the life of politics, we felt the need to have a conversation looking at how this issue of ageism affects us as young people, and the way we do politics and the way we perceive democracy. Ageism and politics has been something of a concern for a very long time. There's been the issue of the matured ones knows the best, the older generation knows the best. In West Africa, where there's so much emphasis placed on this age as a guarantee of experience, as a guarantee of wisdom, becomes very difficult for people to accept that young people needs to be part of the democratic process. Young people need to be part of the political process. Young people have their voices and they need to be heard. And as all of us are aware, being part of the African Union, being part of the ECOWAS, and also globally being part of the United Nations, African Union, United Nations, all of us have signed charters and treaties that speaks to giving chance to young people, making sure their voices are heard in every aspect of the development of our country, being it in governance, being it in climate change issues, being it in anything, peace and security, extremism. Today, we understand that young people are being used for extremism. And so the whole idea is to make sure that the voices of these people are heard. And as part of what they're trying to do, they make sure to enact policies and charters and protocols which fit to address some of the deficits that we see today. Unfortunately, not much has been done. Some has been done, not much has been done. And that's why today we're going to have this conversation. And having this conversation with me, I have with me Eva. Miss Eva Ekofo it's a young woman politician who is a member of the Convention People's Party in Ghana, who has contested as a parliamentary candidate before, and she is the regional vice for the Ghana Society of Physically Challenged Persons, which is very important to our conversation. Ms. Eva, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks for the opportunity, sir.
You're welcome. Again, I have with me here Madam Nafisa Abubakar Adejumo from Nigeria, who is the founder of Girls Just Want to Run initiative, and also an old fellow of Young Women's Political Leadership School. She's an active voice in the issues of gender. We're waiting for Ibrahim Farouk of YIGA to join us. We'll introduce him. So sorry. And so we're waiting for Ibrahim to join, and then we'll introduce Ibrahim. So I'm going to start the conversation with Eva. Eva, as a young woman in politics and as somebody who has been in the conversation of having our voices being heard in the space, do you think, what is your perspective of the conversation? Do you think that enough has been done for persons with disability when it comes to political participation of young women? And also other young people with
yeah, Esther, not much has been done. Before I came to the political space, I realized that we were having a lot of challenges. Actually, it's because of these challenges that even propelled me to decided to get into politics, because somebody has to, start doing something. Somebody has to speak up. Somebody has to take the challenge so that others can also follow up. So I think before 2016, not much was being heard about young people and the local politics and school politics. Yes, they were being involved. They were encouraged to participate in school politics. But when it comes to the national politics and those things, they were not given the opportunity. Young people are not given the opportunity to participate fully. They are always behind the scenes, being the cheerleaders, cheering the older ones on, doing all the work for them to assume positions. But when it comes for a position, when a position is available and maybe a young person can assume that position because of age, they will always pick the older one and leave the young one out. And the excuse is that you are still growing, you need more time, you need more experience. So I can say that till now, not much has been done, but we are still working at it, hoping that things will get better. So I can say from 2016 till now, there has been some improvement. It has been better compared to the previous years. Yeah.
Okay, Eva, I think I want you to touch on a very important subject for me, because like I said earlier, the issue about ageism in politics goes beyond just, the underlying factors are more, which of course we're going to be discussing. But as a young person living with disability and also seeing a lot of people, young people, not only as a young woman, but other young people living with disability, how do you feel their entrance into politics has been seen or has been received? Is the environment conducive for you and your other fellows to be able to participate in the space?
Not conducive at all. Not conducive at all, especially, one of the things is being a young person is one thing, then being a disabled is another issue. So it's like taking two hurdles at the same time, trying to break two barriers in order to be able to get to your target. So being a young person, being a disabled, it's not been easy, especially when you look at our terrain here, talking of West Africa, Africa and Ghana as a whole. It's not been easy for persons with disability to venture into politics. It's not been easy because we have a whole lot of issues to deal with, which has not been resolved yet. Then politics coming becomes a different thing. So it's not been easy at all.
I mean, Eva, you keep saying it's not been easy, and that's why we want to have the conversation. What are the issues? Because we need to know the issues. All of us here are experts. We need to know the issues and see how best we can help to address it. And that is why we are having this conversation. So if you can throw more light on the issues, let us know the issues, because we don't know.
One of our main challenges is accessibility. Accessibility, we all know our road networks. And also, how do I put it? Even having access to a public place, to have an audience to talk to people, it's a challenge. Then the stigmatization around the whole thing, being a disabled person, the stigma that belief that is a taboo sort of, you are not supposed to come near people. You are relegated to the background, sort of. You can't speak up. You having a certain form of disease. That's the perception, you know. Until recently, people were even having the understanding that disability is transmittable. So some don't even want to come around you. So these are some of the things. Then besides that, the beliefs around it, I mean, traditionally, the tribe part of it, because there are certain tribes who wouldn't even like to associate with persons with disability. I mean, it's a huge conversation we are having here. I mean, so to get into it, I think it's a whole lot of issues. It's a whole lot of issues, but these are the few that I can mention for now. Yes, these are the few.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let me bring Nafisa in the conversation, because Eva mentioned something like being a young person and also being a disabled person is another problem. We know that in West Africa, where we believe in so much of this sexism and all that, and also this ageism, like this person is young, why should you give an opportunity to a woman? A woman is supposed to be at the background, and whether we like it or not, it's still playing out. There's a lot of conversation where you hear even heads of state talking about women supposed to be in the kitchen. And now this year is saying that we want to see that bridging from where you come from as a young person, politically active. How does it play out? What's your perspective? What do you think about this conversation when it's being heard? I mean, when we're talking about it as a young woman? We can hear you. Eva, please, can you mute yourself? Okay, Nafisa, can you hear me? But we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now, ma'am?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that means it's my headphones. Okay, so basically, thank you very much for the question. In our field, we call them intersecting vulnerabilities. So basically, the fact that you're a young woman is one vulnerability, at least according to the space. You're a young woman, it's a vulnerability. You're young, in fact, it's a vulnerability. You're a woman, it's a vulnerability. And then if you are now disabled or challenged, it's another vulnerability. So you have three vulnerabilities intersecting and meeting each other and making that space more challenging for you to function and operating, because there's a level of access that you're not able to to get. Now, if you come to me, if you come to our space, being a young woman, young first, woman second, who is also trying to be politically active within the Nigerian political ecosystem, it's not been easy. Because first of all, young people do not have it, do not have it easy by any chance. Whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, it is a surmountable challenge that you have to overcome. There's always the issue of finance, there's the issue of access into privileged circles that can enhance your political career. And they look at you, which is basically the topic for this webinar. Ageism. Ageism as a concept is basically, perspectives that deny people opportunities or access because of their age. It affects old people, it affects young people. And in this part, and in the context of this conversation, we can see it affecting women who are younger, because they believe because you're a young person, you do not have you do not have much to contribute to the discussion, whereby they do not understand that it is that youth and vitality, and energy that will make the system more viable and more dynamic and more productive and effective. So, those are some of the things. It's like a barrier, really. It's like an age barrier. They say, okay, you're young. What do you want to do? That sit down when the elders are talking, that you don't have much to offer, whereby we actually do have a lot to offer. I was at a political meeting a while back. And then one of the, how I put it, one of the major stakeholders, or let me say elder statesmen of a particular political party was in the meeting. And then one of the leaders for the youth stood up and said that, you know what, excuse me, sir, you people are the ones that own the party, and we are just here to, do your bidding or following your instructions. That's, in fact, then you now see that the concept of ageism not only applies to the people that it benefits, but some young people even also imbibe that sort of mentality in themselves. So they feel like because they are not of this certain age, or don't have this certain level of experience, they don't have much to offer in the political space, which is wrong. I felt very, very upset by that statement, but I couldn't just, stand up and say anything. That would be rude. But we cannot allow the concept of ageism block out a significant part of our population. There is so much young people can do if given the space and access in the political system, and it's something that both parties, not just the people that are older, but the people that are younger, because like we say, ageism cuts across whether you're young, whether you're old, whether you're male, whether you're female. I think I'll just, stop there.
Okay, but I mean, Nafisa, I want you to come back to the topic. Because you've broadly mentioned how it affects all of us, I mean, as young people, but I want you to be much more specific on young women. And like I'm happy when you mentioned the country context in Nigeria and what is happening. How is it playing out? Now you are in the electoral season. There's so many things happening. How is it playing out as at now? As a young woman, is this something that is really hindering a lot of Nigerian young people, young women from being heard, being active in the space as we speak?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It definitely is. It's like, how do I put it? It's like a woman, imagine me, if I remove all the rings and etc and all these things that make me look older than I naturally am, and wear like, a pair of jeans and a top, and go to a political party secretariat to a ward meeting and say that, you know what, I'm a young woman and I want to participate in the process. The questions that they will begin to ask you are things like, did you tell your parents that where you are coming? Do you understand? They assume that because of your age, and it's even worse for women, in the sense that, young men have a sense of, men right from, upbringing, have a sense of autonomy and independence that are not necessarily accorded onto women in our Nigerian society or Nigerian context. So they feel like someone always has to be responsible for the woman. So if you appear as a young woman, they can say, where's your father, where's your mother? They allowed you to come out like this. Or if you're married, they'll say, where's your husband? Did your husband consent to you being a part of this particular process? I've had people say it to me. So, leave the part of married when we're focusing on age now and how it does affect or obstruct women from engaging in the political process. It indeed is a thing. Like I said, because of your age, they do not believe that you have something viable to offer, that you shouldn't be there. You should probably be going to school or be doing makeup or be on Instagram or something, that they associate that particular age with a level of, I'm sorry, but this might seem too critical, with a level of foolishness. This is not these young men. What do they know? They don't know anything apart from, apart from knowing how to do makeup or do fashion or go on Instagram or do Big Brother Nigeria. So it definitely is like it definitely is like a critical thing that does obstruct a lot of young women from taking part in that process. Or the next thing they say, you're a young woman, should you not be going to get married or give birth to your children? For example, I was in the airport the other day. It was when leggings and a top, and I was carrying my 3-month-old at the time in front of me because we were traveling. And I was looking very young. I tied my hair in a scarf. And the man told me that, by the way, to put it in context, I'm 29 years old. So the man, an airport official saw me and probably thought maybe I was like in my very early 20s and said that I like it when women have their children very, very young. And I was like, what does that have to do with anything? So there are just some stereotypes. They feel like as a young woman, you should not be within this space. You should probably be getting married, trying to get married, trying to have children, trying to build a home, trying to go to school, trying to do any other thing apart from having access to the political ecosystem and making your voice heard and known.
I feel you how this thing normally plays out, and it really does. The conversation of stop making noise and create a home, stop making noise and have babies. It's really something they try to bring young women down. You're right about that. But let's bring Ibrahim into the conversation. UN acknowledges the fact that there are certain legal issues that needs to be addressed within the space. And I think for the very first time on the continent, an institution rose up to fight against the age, the age requirements of somebody to actually take up political positions or be of House of Rep or even a representative. And I think the Not Too Young came to pass, and thankfully Nigeria have. Ibrahim, I want to know your perspective. Not just the age limit has been reduced. That alone has been able to address some of the challenge, or do you see an improvement from your perspective? I mean, from what you have been doing. By the way, let me introduce Ibrahim properly. Ibrahim works with YIGA Africa, a youth-led civil society organization based in Nigeria, who happens to be the convener of the Not Too Young to Run movement, a movement that seeks to reduce the age limit of age requirements of persons running for political office in Nigeria. I think that not only in Nigeria, but they've also extended helping hand to other countries like Cameroon with Newsletter, where they're working to reduce the voting age from 20 to 18. And so thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Esther, and happy International Youth Day. And let me apologize that I was unable to join the conversation earlier. It's International Youth Day, and there's so many conversations focusing on how we can support young people. And I'm so happy that this conversation is not just about young people, but also with a focus on young women. Because many times when we speak about young people, it's almost as if our image of who a young person is a young man or a young male. But we must also ensure that young women make up as much of the population as young men as well. To answer your question specifically is to say, since the Not Too Young to Run bill was passed in Nigeria in 2018, which reduced the age for running for elective office. So previously, to run for president in Nigeria, you had to be at least 40 years old, and it was reduced to 25. To run for the House of Representatives and the House of Assembly, which is a subnational legislative body that we have, you had to be at least 30 years old. But from the 2019 elections, you could be 25 years old and run for office. One of the things that we saw definitely was that legislation increased the levels of youth candidacy. And previously, youth candidacy was about 15% in Nigeria. So 15% of all candidates for elective office were young people. But we saw almost 100% increase since the passage of the Not Too Young to Run law. And what this also meant is that we saw many more young men and women who were also winning elective offices. While that is progress, there's still a lot more to be done. And we have general elections that come up in the next few months, in February and in March 2023, and this is an opportunity to continue to do that. But as I just was reflecting on the elections that have been happening around the continent, for instance, in Kenya, even though young people are able to run, I think once you're 21 or once you're 25, we saw that not enough young people were concerned about putting themselves forward to run for office, especially those legislative offices as members of county assemblies or members of parliament. So we've seen in some cases where legislation inspires young people to come out and run. But we've also seen in some other cases where the enabling laws already provide an avenue for young people to run, and the enabling laws are not a barrier, but we're not seeing enough young people who are putting themselves forward to run for office. But what's not too young to run hopes to achieve. Working in Nigeria, working across the African continent, and even being adopted by the Office of the Special Envoy to the UN Secretary General on Youth, is that in countries like Kenya, for instance, where the law is not a barrier, how can we inspire young people within political parties or as independent candidates, if that is available within their systems, to run for office as well? So the Not Too Young to Run movement looks at there's legislation or barriers. Sometimes the barriers are not necessarily just legislation. Sometimes the barriers can also be structural or administrative within political parties, where there is a high cost of nomination forms or where there is a lack of internal party democracy. But today, as we celebrate International Youth Day, and I'm glad that the theme talks about intergenerational solidarity, is to look back and say, what have previous young people done in Africa? In almost all of our countries, the struggle for independence was led by young people. And those young people now, some of them are in their 60s or in their 70s or in their 80s. What are the lessons that we can learn from them? How can we build those bridges and share experiences? Even though times have changed, many of the principles remain the same. And we can learn from that. And if I forgot to say it when I started, happy International Youth Day to everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ibrahim. Okay, so Ibrahim, I think you've introduced something really I was about to, so let's continue from you and you're going to stay with me. I think that, yes, the Not Too Young to Run have done quite a very good work, reducing the age and all that. And rightly you mentioned, there are still certain barriers that inhibit us from participating. And if I'm right, I think that if you look at the cost of democracy in West Africa, a research done by CDD Ghana showed that in Ghana, you need over $100,000 just to run for as a member of parliament. You need time, I mean, if not times 2 or even same amount, just to get the party nomination. In Ghana, the youngest member of parliament, who happens to be a young woman, happens to come from an affluent home. Her father built party office. Her father built gave taxi drivers in the constituency cars. Party executives were given huge envelopes, literally huge envelopes and all that. So it was so easy for her to win. It was very easy for her to win. And so, yes, we can say we have a young person in parliament in Ghana. But again, we look back and we see the processes or the ways as which she was able to be elected. And then you look at the average salary of young, a young person. And then we are talking about, do you think we actually have an extensive, serious conversation about state financing of political parties and also political party campaign financing? Because I think in West Africa, I might be wrong, somebody can correct me. In West Africa, there hasn't been any country that is so strong or has a law on political party financing and all that. And so you see the issue of vote buying being a huge concern. And as young people, how do we perceive, I think that would be the next question. How does this make us to perceive the democracy that we are practicing now?
Thank you very much, Esther. And I definitely touched on that issue a bit more when it comes to some of those barriers to young people's participation in running for office. And I'm glad that you shared some of those the experience from Ghana. We have similar experiences here as well, where it seems that families are trying to build a dynasty. And what that means is that the son or a daughter or a relative of a political godfather from a political family sees political office as his or her birthright, and therefore would do everything to ensure that they perpetuate themselves in office. Unfortunately, and also just using the story from Nigeria, for instance, and talking about campaign financing, while civil society organizations and citizens were advocating for a reduction in campaign financing laws, what the National Assembly did was to raise those campaign finance limits in some instances by more than 500%. And even be that as it may, there's very little or no oversight that the election management body provides when it comes to tracking campaign financing. The Electoral Act of 2010, which was the previous Electoral Act before a new one was signed in February 2022, mandates political parties to submit their accounts, I think 90 days after the elections. Out of 91 political parties in the 2019 general elections, only 3 political parties submitted their audited accounts, their audited campaign accounts to the election management body. But the election management body does not have power to prosecute those who do not send in their accounts. So it's a huge challenge, but there is hope. And I am not one to usually just dwell on what are the challenges, but also to ask, what are some of the solutions? And for me, one of the solutions for young people especially is to say, I don't always have to run to be governor. I don't have to run to be president to start with. There definitely is a place that resources play when it comes to running for office, and young people who are interested in running for office should have a plan to either raise money or have some money set aside to run for office, and also ask, what have other young people who have run for office and won? What were some of the strategies that they employed to ensure that they were able to mitigate those who came with what we call Ghana must go bags filled with money.
Ibrahim, I'm not cutting you, but I just want to ask this. I mean, all the things that you're talking about that young people should be doing, I think pretty much most civil society and young people are doing that. However, I want to know how do we deal with, because and I would want you to touch on what is the perception of democracy to young people now based on what is happening, because how do we curtail this? Like you said, it's my birthright. And these people who think it's their birthright comes with money. They just ended a governorship election in Osun. We saw Davido going into the community. So this is a celebrity, not only a celebrity. This is somebody who have access to finances, serious access to finances. And so it is so easy for him to say, I'm doing this for the people. I'm doing this, I'm giving this out because he knows the benefit. So he might be campaigning for somebody who might not necessarily be the preference or might be the preference, but because the person has money, you understand? And so if you're a young resource, how does it happen? And so my thinking is, how as activists, how do we want to see the conversation? Because now it seems like money is becoming a huge, and like I said, you've done so well with the not too young to run. And fortunately for us in Ghana, our laws has been very favorable. In fact, in Ghana, at 40 years, you can be president. And as low as 25 years, you can be anything. 18 years, you can go to the local level. You can go to the assembly level and all that. However, young people are still not in the space. And if you talk to majority of them, finances is key. That's and so how do we move the conversation in making sure that, yes, we are having the laws, but is it inclusive? Is the environment enabling for us?
That's a very tough question, Esther. But I'll try and provide some context and some responses. In Oshun, we definitely saw a lot of vote buying, and vote buying is a huge challenge for young people who seek to run for office, because it means that you are constantly making expenses that previously probably you didn't budget for as part of your campaign expenses. But I was making the point earlier that especially from a personal perspective, and even as the Not Too Young to Run movement, is we understand that the opportunities for young people to get into public office are at more subnational levels. So we have a state house of assembly in each of the 36 states, and there are over 900 seats which are up for elections. And this provides an opportunity for young people to say, oh, within my local government area, within the State House of Assembly constituency, am I able to campaign well enough in such a way that I am recognized and I stand a chance to win the elections? After the 2019 elections, one of the things we did was to document the stories of young men and women who won. And I know a certain young man who won in Nasarawa State, and he spent less than ₦1 million to win his House of Assembly seat. And in the context of Nigerian politics, he spent close to nothing in winning that election. But he was able to go and mobilize to market women, to youth associations, to youth groups. And on election day, when they voted for him, they stayed back at the polling units to ensure that there wasn't any form of electoral fraud, to ensure that the votes were counted and announced in their presence, and to ensure that they also escorted the electoral officials to the collation center to ensure that there was no electoral fraud during the collation process. But running for governor of a state, for instance, like Davido's uncle, definitely requires a heavier war chest, so to speak, or you need more resources to campaign for that elections. In the House of Representatives in Nigeria, we also have 360 seats. And I'm sure, Esther, also in Ghana, you know that you'd find more young people holding legislative offices than holding some of these executive offices, because it provides more of an opportunity to run for an election, win, and then you can now start to grow within the political party, within your constituency, within your community, and then aspire for some higher office. But I definitely agree that the challenges with vote buying are a huge challenge. The challenges with campaign financing are a huge challenge, despite the best efforts of many civil society organizations here to see how we can reduce some of those costs. Unfortunately, it was not as successful as we would have liked.
Okay, thank you, Ibrahim. I think I'm going to bring Nafisa in the conversation. Nafisa, as a young Ibrahim mentioned something less than ₦1 million. And to get ₦1 million is not a joke, you know, my brother. And you know, in politics, sometimes there are some monies that are spent that you don't really document them. So even to get ₦1 million, it's not a joke in Nigeria. I mean, there's a lot of unemployed young persons. And if somebody is 25 or 30 years, how many years has a person worked to acquire ₦1 million? That's a lot. Nafisa, as a young woman, I know it's going to be tough. What's your take? Do you think we've done enough, or do you think that there are some state institution that needs to be held responsible, or there are certain things that needs to change within the that we are discussing.
Sorry, ma'am, could you take the last two lines again? Something needs to change. Yeah.
Yeah, whether there's a law that we need to enforce, there's something that we need to do, because democracy is for the people, and it doesn't have to be this kind of monetary sort of.
Wow. Okay, like Ibrahim said, that it's a tough question, because it's like trying to solve an impossible problem. It's like the chicken and the egg, which one came first? Because in a country like ours, when the poverty indices are really, really high, there's a lot of inequality in the society. It is almost inevitable that the process that we even pass through to elect our leaders is going to be money driven. Like, for example, I think I'm just going to draw on my husband's example. For, you know him, he just finished off his primaries in PDP. He didn't win, and he spent nothing less than 25 million. Yes. He spent nothing less than 25 million naira,
Okay. I'm going to try to convert.
To just, buy the form, mobilize delegates, do world congresses, do every Sunday congresses. It's a lot of money, and it's very hard to.
Okay, so pause. Let me. So for our audience who are not Nigerians, this is close to $3,000 for an internal party election. Yeah, please continue so that they get a contest and the money.
Exactly, and he's a young man. It's not even a young woman. So if we even bring it down to us, because like I said, you're intersecting vulnerabilities, I'm sure that it will probably be more. And it's very hard because the system is really, really driven by money. We have what we call, like, I'm sure ma'am, the delegate system within, our own political party, exactly, that is also has been put into place by the electoral law, etc. And it is these delegates, according to a politician that I heard speak last week Friday, they are one of the most dubious people to ever exist on the planet, because they will take money from you. One delegate would take nothing less than, like let's say, like a 200,000 from one candidate. I know, like someone was running for Senate for the internal election. The man was distributing 200,000 naira plus a motorcycle or a bus you share with your fellow delegates, and you have nothing less than 100 of them. So it's intensely monetized, and also because there's a lot of inequality in the system. That money that they collect during the election season might be the only money that they will see, for the next how many years. And if you tell them, what, vote for this person, he's going to make sure that life will get better for you, there is no guarantee for them, because they've gone through an election cycle over and over again. And pardon my English, but leaders have screwed them over and over again, after telling them that your children will have a future, things will be brighter. So that is the entirety of the system that we live in. But I do have to say, when it comes down to policy, and I'm hoping that this is something that Yaga can also take into consideration, seeing that Ibrahim is also here, I think that the legislation on campaign finance is a bit lack. I haven't delved into that very, very well, but people have been saying that campaign financing, at least the policy as regards that, needs to be, re-examined to fit our current realities. The same way we've been going back to back for Not Too Young to Run bill, going back to back for the electoral law itself. I think we then need to, examine the current legislation that exists as regards campaign financing, and know what is achievable and know what isn't achievable. Oh, is that the dollar? I'm sorry, my colleague is just showing me what 25 million is. Wow. That's a lot of money. that's a lot of money. So we need, like, we really do need to we really need to, how will I put it, think about the legislation that revolves around campaign finance. I know there is some, and it says, like, I know Chika's name, who also ran for elections as well, but stepped down. She did like a brief survey of the current laws that exist, and this what they call it, this candidate should not spend more than 1 billion, this candidate can't spend more than a particular amount of money. But what are the accountability measures to make sure that these, how will I put it, these candidates don't actually spend above the specified amount? I don't, sorry, somebody is so what are the accountability measures to make sure that this candidate spend within this certain amount? Is it practical? Is it feasible? We can't just put laws out there and expect them to do what they're supposed to do, what they intend them to do. We have to put checkmates and balances and some sort of accountability measures to make sure that you're not just putting the law there to make yourself feel good and say that you have done the minimum according to the people. No, you need to actually put laws that work. Then another thing that I think we need to explore is that, when most of these, like you say, the Osun State election, etc., they were able to, that family was able to push through because they had a lot of financial resources and had a lot of access to, let me put it this way, godfathers. Do you understand? And usually these people, they don't come free. They come with a price. They're like, you know what, if I'm going to contribute a certain amount of money to your own election, you need to be able to give me access to so and so. That's why for some reasons we don't want some people to enter political office. If not, the resource, our commonwealth resource, is going to be diverted into a few pockets. So that is why a lot of young people, especially young women, young people, are now resorting to crowdfunding as a basis for what they call it, for funding their own political campaigns. Seeing my husband run his own political campaign, and I watched him in, this one is not, I heard, I saw how he conducted this campaign, and I drew a few lessons. And I think those few lessons in the current situation where we're in, because policy might take a long time to change, but we can change our current methodology and our current strategies. I think the first thing I want to say is that your network is very, very important. Your network is extremely important. So it's not just enough to just say, okay, I want to run for office. I think we should deliberately spend time adding value to ourselves and giving value to ourselves so that we have an extensive network of people in the government sector, in the private sector, in any aspect. Because that network is going to be, if you say today I want to run for office and I want to be able to crowdfund from my network, the network you have, is it going to be able to push, are they going to be able to push your agenda? Are they going to be able to say, you know what, each of us are going to donate 10,000 now, 100 people, or one person can say, I'm going to clear like half of your election expenses to 10 million. I think these are things that young women should, take into consideration. We ourselves, we are strong enough, but we need to spread, our tentacles, spread ourselves and network with a lot of people, not just women itself, not just, because there's a lot we can do with parallel, networking. Horizontal as well is there. Network with everybody, the men, the women, everybody, because the next person could be the person that could open that door for you into that political party. Could say, you know what, I'm going to introduce you to this Iya Alaja, and she's going to tell you what to do. She's going to follow you to talk to the market woman. This person is going to say, you know what, I'm going to contribute 10,000, 11,000, 100,000 to your campaign. So I think that's something that we young women need to, work on, because I think while we are waiting to change the system, we can evolve to meet the demands of the time. And then we continue pushing to have our voices heard and things we need to do. So I think that's, on my own end, I think that's one perspective that we need to, because the thing is that if you say that, I want to have godfathers within the system and I want them to be able to pump money to make it, all well and good, but will you be able to pay according to your values when they come? Why not rely on the people? Let the people who want you there, let them sponsor you into that office. So that you don't have, if you are beholden to anyone, you're beholden to the people that actually elected you to that position. And that's the reason why you're there. I'm just seeing, how can we move from being put into political positions by godfathers who would demand things from us at the expense of the people, to being sponsored and funded by the people into political positions, and then you are answerable to the people, not just one man, not just two people. That's why we see that there's a lot of inequality, and two men alone can be handling the state's budget inside their pockets.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to, yeah.
I mean, you just rightly said young women are the most disadvantaged. Of course, the power of networking is low, the power of fundraising is low. Even the societal confidence in young women to be able to lead is also a problem. Like I said, in West Africa, where we believe so much in age and sex, it's very crucial. But let me bring Eva in. Eva, you earlier on mentioned stigmatization, accessibility as one of the challenges for persons with disability. And now we are talking about finances. So in my head, I'm wondering, how is the situation like for you? Because again, I might think it might be bad, but maybe to you, it might be good. Do you think there's enough, even in Ghana, there's enough laws on campaign financing? Or do you think it's very easy for persons with, young persons with disability to get funded? Please unmute yourself, please, Eva.
Hello. Hope you can hear me now. As I was saying earlier on, it's not easy. It's not easy in getting financial support, even from your own family, even from the party you are representing. They find it difficult to support you financially, because already the notion that you'll not be able to make it, you are just giving it a try. So they are just behind the scenes trying to see what you can do. Yeah, so everybody feel like, no, this is already a lost business. Why should I put my money in this one? That's one of the things. So most of the time you need people who genuinely support your idea, genuinely love you for what you want to do. Some just do it because they want to see you at that level. Some support you because they know you can do it. They want to give you a push. Even if you are not able to make it to that point, at least you've made a statement that if given the opportunity, you can do it. And others too should look up to that person to push towards that direction. That is how it is. But if you are expecting them to support you financially, I'm sorry, that's one. Even within the party, they don't want to, because they, right from the onset, they see it as a lost business. You can't make it in this terrain. They've already discouraged you that you can't make it. So if you insist to go ahead, then you are on your own. Yes, that's how it is.
So this is the sad reality of young people within the democratic space that we have. I want to find out, what's your perception with all these things that we'll be discussing? We want to see a different narrative. We want to see young people being pushed. There's so many initiatives that we are doing. There's so many policies that we are doing. But then there is a perception that these things normally create in the minds of people. And I want us to talk about what are the perceptions as a result of some of these actions that has been created in the minds of young people about democracy, and how can this perception be erased?
The perception that, one, you are too young to go there. Two, you don't have the resources, so you can't make it. Then three, I mean, it's a dangerous terrain. You don't have to venture. I mean, stay in your safe place, do what you think you can, and move on with your life. So I think it all depends on all of us. Just as we are discussing today, yes, if we continue to advocate, we continue to make them understand that somebody has to do it. All those who are in, they decided to do it. First of all, build your personal self-confidence, that because I will not support you if I don't see that confidence in you. If you don't have the confidence that I can do it, it will not encourage anybody to give you that support. So first of all, you should be confident in yourself, and you should get enough education into whatever you are putting yourself in. Because if you know what you are in for, I mean, you'll be able to move ahead. And also we should have that perception that if age is the limit, those who are there now, they also went through the same system, but because they decided not to give up, so they're not giving up spirit, should be one of the things that you should build upon. So as we are all in one way or another, we are all advocating for it. So we should do more of the advocacy. We should do more of the education, talking to young people, encouraging them. Even if you do it and you are not able to make it, you shouldn't stop encouraging others to get into that level. And also, you may not be vying for a political position, but behind the scenes, you want to see young people, you want to see young women, you want to see persons with disability get to that point. You can be their source of support. You can be their source of encouragement, trying to be there for them. Do anything you can, because we all need one another. We can't do it alone. We all need each other one way or another. Anything that you can bring to the table to push this agenda, I think is very necessary. So we should continue in whatever we are doing to support this agenda that we are all embarking on.
Thank you, Eva. Nafisa, let me run to you. Are we creating good perception for young people to believe in the democracy that we are talking about, to say that democracy is indeed for them, democracy will provide them the solution to what they need? I think those of us in West Africa, we know what's happening in Sierra Leone. So, I mean, what's your take?
I don't think
Eva,
so.
please, can you mute yourself? Eva, please mute yourself. Thank you.
I don't think we are. I don't think that, if not, what I do think is that a lot of people, a lot of young people, and even a lot of young women, most especially, are losing faith in democracy. Because it seems like more and more these days, the institutions that are meant to checkmate certain tendencies are falling apart. And, you know, the system is becoming more difficult to navigate. It's becoming more difficult to access. Are young people getting more interested, do you understand, and more active as regards their role as a citizen? Yes. And the reason why they are doing it is because they have no choice. Because they have realized that it's either we take part in this thing or the system will destroy us. So they have activated their roles and their voices as what they call it now, because of necessity. Because if they don't speak up, if they don't get their voters card, like see what is happening in Nigeria now. The dollar is today it's 690, tomorrow is 700 and something. Inflation is at a double digit. People can't afford anything. People have started cooking with coal now. You know, now we started going back to the olden days. People have actually started cooking coal as against buying gas, because gas is too expensive. So young people are losing faith in the system, but they have had to resort to using their voices and trying to get their voters card and lots of things, because they have seen that it is necessity for this time. If we do not actively participate in the system, then we are doomed. If we do not have a say in nominating or electing the people that are going to represent us and increase the standard of our livelihood, then we're in big trouble. Because do we think that the system is getting better? We've had several interventions within the system, like thank God Ibrahim is here, what they call the Not Young to Wrong bill, and the new electoral act that was just amended. And that was done through the diligence and determination of several CSO groups and of course several citizens. It hasn't gotten easier. We are just learning to navigate the difficulty of the waters. So is it becoming more attractive? No, I think we are just looking forward to a day when we can say that we're proud of our democracy. But right now we're not. We don't like where it's heading. We don't like the what they call it, the products that we're producing. We do not like the leaders that are leading us. It's only like in a few pocket states, maybe one or two, maybe in Oyo State and a few pocket states, that people can say, you know what, our dividends, our votes really spoke for us in this particular instance, and we are proud of at least the internal democracy that they seem to have in the state. And believe me, it's nowhere near perfect. So do they have more faith in the system? I don't think they do. I don't think we do. But we've just realized as a point of necessity, we need to get engaged, because if we don't get engaged, then our futures are compromised. So there's a lot to do with helping us to believe in that. Right now, we just believe in ourselves and hope for a better future. That's why we're actively engaging.
This is a very serious observation, because we are the people going to lead the country and going to make things right. So if we don't have faith in the democracy, then it's a problem. Ibrahim, you've had your two sisters. It seems hope is going down. What is your take on what young people perceive the democracy to be, and what do we want?
Thank you. And yes, I've heard my sisters and what they have had to say. And the truth is, not just for young people, across the world, there is a growing distrust with democracy, and it seems like democracy is declining. And we see that exhibit itself in many different ways. For one, in some countries, we see it find expression in form of protests, for instance. In some other places, we see it express itself as the low levels of voter turnout that we see, especially among young people. If you take Nigeria, for instance, in the 2019 general elections, young people made up about 51% of our voters register. But how many of that 51%, which was about 42 million, turned out to vote? We had less than 30% of that 42 million who are young people who turned out to vote. It's very important that democracy truly responds to the needs of citizens, especially its young citizens, young men and young women. It was very interesting, and to digress a bit, the conversations during the Brexit vote, to see that many young people either didn't care or didn't participate as much. But the decisions that were taken are going to affect young people for a longer time than it would affect the older people who voted to stay. So for me, the question around participation is non-negotiable. Participation must be for young people. And I remember in my opening statements, I said, no, we're talking about youth, we're talking about young men, we're talking about young women. But I was looking at voter registration figures for the just concluded registration process in Nigeria. And we saw that out of the new voters, young women made up a higher proportion than young men. So it shows that democracy must represent the interests of all these various groups. Now, we also have a lot of work as civil society organizations who kind of stand in the gap to say, what are we doing? And days like today, International Youth Day, provide an opportunity for us to elevate those conversations and articulate what are some of the actions that need to be taken in such a way that puts this conversation front and center. We have elections almost every year across the African continent. So as soon as elections are wrapping up in Kenya, we're thinking about elections in Nigeria, we're thinking about elections in Ghana, we're thinking about elections in Liberia, and all of these elections have consequences for us. It's very important that our messaging and the narrative focuses and reemphasizes the fact that elections have consequences, and probably more long-term consequences for us as young people, especially.
Ibrahim, you've put it right. Elections have consequences for us, particularly young people. You can't, you mentioned of the register, the number of people that have registered. Young women are in the majority. In Ghana too, the same thing happened. Young women were in the majority, but did the votes really represent them and all that? I think that yes, we'll get the voter card and will not show up, which is huge. There's a saying in Ghana, they say, why should I go and queue for somebody's father to get a job and make themselves rich and keep us poor? And I asked them, okay, so why did you go for the card? And how do you think that the person can enrich themselves without your permission. If you are silent, you have given them literally a permission to do whatever they want to do because they are leading you and you are silent. You don't want to be involved in anything that they do. And politics do affect us in so many ways as young people in everyday life. Health, education, everything, it does affect us. And so it's very important as young people, we look at it from that angle, which I think the linkage between democracy and politics and governance and our everyday life, it's kind of a bit missing because a lot of people are not seeing the linkage that if you are not getting hospitals in beds and people are dying, it's because of bad governance. If you are not getting water, it's because of, people don't see the correlation, I mean, the connection between the two, which I think, like you said, civil society, we need to do much. How do we let citizens be aware of this? And I think that maybe in my last question and trying to wrap up, I want us to talk about how we kind of link policy to democracy vis-a-vis young people, because most of the time as civil society, from a civil society perspective, we are eager to say young people go out to register, young people go out to vote. That's the pre-electoral stages. Go out to vote, go out to do this. But hardly do we make sure that young people's voices are really heard in the manifestos of all the parties. Hardly are we so much critical in looking at the implementation of the manifestos to see that they are beneficial to young people and young women. So from all of you are active, what do you think has been the issue and how do we address this? How do we try to find the balance and make sure this narrative change will then affect the lives of people to get the confidence back? Like Nafisa said, a lot of people are losing faith in democracy, and we don't want that to happen. I think I'm going to start with Nafisa.
Okay, ma'am. It's ironic because, my answer to this question it's pretty simple, I think, from my own perspective, which is grant young people access to these discussions. Number one, sorry, I think Eva said that Eva or Ibrahim said that it's not just about running, it's about participation in the process. And that means attending the focus group sessions, the brainstorming meetings, registering in political parties, volunteer for a CEO that has to do a lot with the political ecosystem, volunteer for Yaga, right? We are here, so you're able to say something about that, but get involved, open up the doorways for young people to be involved in discussions that lead up to the drafted policies and legislation. There's a young lady I know, of course, we all know her, Dr. Azizat, who is now the speaker for the National Youth Parliament. They're doing a whole lot of work.
She was part of your co-host of Young Women.
Yes, definitely. I even saw her last week, Monday, because we're also trying to work with her. So she's doing a lot of work to make sure that young people are involved, at least understand, because education is even a thing. For example, I didn't really understand for a long time what World Congresses were. Because young people say they want to get involved, and then they end up getting involved. For example, now we had 2023 elections, and they now register in a party 2022, and they say they want to come out, they want to do this, but you can't, because you don't know that several timelines for several congresses, etc., have already taken place. Delegates have been chosen. In fact, they've even chosen your candidates before you can even get there. So there needs to be a sensitization, awareness, and education on how these structures work. Because when you then understand how the legislative works, how the judiciary works, how the executive works, how all the bodies under the government parastatals, the Ministry of Youth, the Ministry of Women, Social Development, etc., then you're not able to say, okay, this is the entryway into this particular organization. How can I volunteer? How can I add value, which is very, very important, because we need to understand that this is by no means an easy process. So when you're coming in, you have to come on your A game. You have to have something of what that you are contributing to the system. Then don't allow them to say that, what are you coming to do here? You have nothing. So I say, I have something to do. I definitely have something to contribute. And you're not doing it for money, you're doing it for your future. So these are ways we need to educate younger people about how the system works. there's a lot of, it's not ignorant, but there's a lack of knowledge on the streets. You know, you go to Twitter, people say lots of things. Oh, we're going to do this for this candidate. Oh, we're going to do this for this candidate. But they don't know the laws. They don't know the INEC laws. They don't know the elect. They don't know anything. Even the constitution, they don't even understand it. And I will not blame some people. It's not easy for them to open a book, sit down and read the whole thing back to back. Even us that studied law, it was hard for us. So there is a need to break down important information and disseminate it amongst the populace. Then we need to work to open up access, deliberately, intentionally open up access for young people to be involved in the process. Us that have a little bit of access should not, you know, as we enter, we shut the door so that it will only be us. And when they want to call people, they will only see our faces. No. When we enter, we have a little opening, we open it wider so that other people can come, because the more people come, the more people can, you know, aggregate and raise our voices on common issues. And then we have, like, you know, a mass movement. So I think those are three critical things for me: to educate people, young people especially, for young people to also realize that they have value and spend time honing their potential and their skills, so that when they get into a space, they are not unprepared. And then, of course, for people that already have access, intentionally open the door wider to include young people in discussions that need to be had. I think those are the three takeaways from my end.
Thank you. Eva. Eva, unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, I was saying that I think there should be institutional reforms. Recently in Ghana, we've been talking about the review of our constitution, because like you were saying, in other countries, as young as 31, 32, you see them contesting for presidential seats, and some of them have even won. But in Africa here, we should ask ourselves, how many young people, even the youngest presidents we see, they are about 50, almost on their retirement seat, and they still come and contest for presidential seat, you know. So I think there should be institutional reforms and review of our constitutions as well, because these ones has also become like a limitation to some of our ambitions. They limit us from what we want to aspire. In Ghana, for instance, I learned that to contest for presidential seat, you have to be 45 years and above. So some of the youth are like, oh, 45 years and above, then let me take my time and do whatever I can for now. Then when it gets to that age, before I start eyeing that seat. Meanwhile, you have to start from somewhere. Some of us even just came in not knowing where to start from and how to get in, but by the grace of God, we were able to learn quickly. I'll say on the job training, we learn quickly to get to where we are. So like my sister said, education is one of the key. Then secondly, mentorship. We should learn to mentor others. From the time I contested, that's from 2016, I've been trying to mentor other young ladies to get to that position from their small institutions in the community and in their groups, school groups. I told them that you have to start from somewhere, start putting that kind of confidence in them, make them understand that you can do it, even if nobody's supporting you. Use that in your own small way. When you get to that point that they realize that you can do it, they will give you the push. You don't need to go and beg for it. You don't need to ask for it. Then we should also try to create space. We should create space for others to fill in. Just like Nafisa said, we should not just shut the door because I contested in 2016, I didn't win. I will not let anybody in. I still want to go for that seat at all costs, at all means. Maybe there are other ones like myself who can do it. Maybe there are certain things I couldn't do better, but they can do it better if I should give them the support. So we shouldn't shut the door completely. We should make space for them. We should guide them. We should talk to the policy makers that there should be some kind of policy that will create space for them. They should not make it look so difficult for them to come in. They should create the atmosphere, comfortable atmosphere for them to come in. Because all the time we see politics to be a dangerous terrain to venture in. We always have that perception that it's dangerous. Don't go in there. It's dangerous. Don't try to go near it. In all aspects of it, we see it to be a dangerous thing to venture in. So I think we should talk to our policymakers as well. You and I, we are one of them. And those at the top there are also one of them. So they should create a comfortable atmosphere where the youth can feel comfortable, they feel safe, that when they come in, they will not be attacked, they will not be harassed, they will not lose their identity at the end of the day, because a lot of them have lost their place in society just because they want to go into politics. Some have been disowned even by family because, for instance, my family is in party A and I want to go and contest for party B. At the end of the day, if you are fortunate and your party wins, fine, your family will take you back. If you don't, and theirs lose too, is another issue for you. So we should just create a comfortable atmosphere, yeah, so that we can all fill in the gap, make it a good place for us to live in.
Thank you. Ibrahim. Eva, please mute yourself. Ibrahim. Hello, Ibrahim.
Yes. So final words is, and I think we have a bit reiterated the importance that young people have to play. And my final words is that.
And Ibrahim, before you talk on the final word, I wanted to see the linkage, because it's time. We always make so much noise on making sure that we get them registered and everything. But when it comes to policy formulation, manifestos and all that, we don't really get the young people's voices, young women voices into the manifesto drafting, which would then be translated into policies and laws of the country. And so how do we make sure that this phase of the political system, we get young people to be part of it, which would then help in some way to boost the faith or the confidence that people would have in our democracy? And then you can conclude your...
Okay. While registration is great, I think it's important for us to understand that elections and governance is not just an event, it's a whole process. So while one step in the process is around registering to vote, and voting is probably the most basic form of participation that a citizen can engage in. Beyond just registering, especially for Nigerians, you need to collect your permanent voter's card. And for anyone who is listening anywhere across the African continent, across the world, if it is necessary for you to have some sort of documentation or identification as a voter, is ensure you collect that card. And then ensure that on the day of election, you come out and participate and vote for a candidate of your choice. If there is a young man in your community that you think is going to be an amazing representative, make sure you vote for him. If there's a young woman who has shown competence and character, make sure you vote for her as well. But beyond that, is once officials get into office, it seems like citizens have forgotten that we also have a responsibility to hold them accountable. And there are many ways to do that. You can write petitions, you can visit their offices, you can participate, like Esther said, in manifesto development processes. You can also join the political parties, which is one aspect that I think many of us oftentimes overlook. Nafisa is a member of the political party, a political party here. And so when decisions are being made, she's able to make contributions that she knows protects the interests of women and of young women, which is also a constituency that she belongs to. So it's almost like she's wearing two caps, of being a woman and also being a young woman and also being a youth, at the same time. But even if you're not in a political party, I was having an earlier meeting today where we spoke about there's a youth policy, and the youth policy is reviewed every 5 years, at least for us in Nigeria. That provides another opportunity for us to engage and make our voices heard, make our interests, ensure that our interests are represented in this policy formulation processes. I think that's the message from me, is that beyond just elections, elections are not just a 4-year or a 5-year cycle. The consequences of the decisions we take around the electoral process live with us throughout that 4-year or that 5-year election cycle. And even if you're not happy with the choices, there are ways to engage, either constitutional amendments, policy review, manifesto development within the political parties. There's so many opportunities, but as citizens, we need to build that political culture, political education, political awareness, so that we can participate. And I'm glad I said it earlier that International Youth Day provides an opportunity for us to elevate these conversations, to speak about these key issues. And other young people are also able to learn from these conversations we have on International Day or International Women's Day.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. Thank you, Ida. I think with quite a number of things has been said, and I just want to do a quick review or sort of summary of what has basically been said. Yes, of course, there's a lot of young people are available. Young people want to be part of the system. Unfortunately, the channel. I think my take would be to have more education, civic education. Young people need to understand the system. Young people need to understand the constitution. Young people need to read what the electoral laws, I mean, in Ghana, we have what we call the National Planning Commission, where they have the agenda for government for every 4 years. I think young people need to get involved. Young people need to be card-bearing members of political parties. Young people need to be part of the political party system and be able to contribute to the manifestos, like Ibrahim said. So it might take a lot of things happening. A lot of good things have happened. Not too young to run. Kim has done a good job. Age has been reduced and all that. Space is gradually being opened, but we need more young people to come into the system. We need more young people to understand. You need more young people to study and know what the law says, and so that they can take advantage of it. And so it means that we still have a lot of work to do, all of us here, in terms of civic education and letting people know their responsibilities and knowing that democracy is not about elections only. It's a whole package that we have to be part of the whole process. Today, I know it's international thing, but we thought of it to have the conversation among young people and get the feeling of what is happening. Because if young people don't understand the law, they get to older people, how do they talk to them? Because the older people's assumption is that you might have understood the law and you know what you are talking about and you know the issues and all that. And so we felt it's important for us as young people also to look inward us and see the things that we are doing that are not helping us to be able to enjoy the democracy or to understand the system so that we can correct, whilst we also get the older people to make the necessary corrections or the amendments that there is to be done, so that we can have faith in our democracy and enjoy our democracy. So on that note, thank you very much for joining us in this conversation. We're live on Facebook, and you can go back and watch us and let's have your say, what you think or anything on Facebook, as we all work towards making sure that the political system is more inclusive. The political system is enabling for young people and particularly young women, and also making sure that all the things that needs to be done for young people to engage in our democracy is well achieved. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon, this morning, wherever you find yourself. Thank you, and thank you very much for our panel. Have a blessed day. And happy International Day, everybody.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you.
Okay, bye.